Thank you for joining us for Technology Tools. I am Cheryl Dara-Boychuk, U.S. Director of Institutional Relations for INTCAS, which stands for Intelligent Communities Around Students. INTCAS helps education institutions from around the world to attract, recruit, and manage international students in a safe, compliant, and cost-efficient way. In my professional volunteer capacity, I'm involved with NAFSA, the Association of International Educators. I serve on the editorial advisory board of their award-winning magazine, International Educator, and I regularly present on the topic of measuring return on investment in international student recruitment. You'll find that INCAS offers a very impressive cost per student acquisition. And like many of you, I am also a parent. There's my male entourage. My oldest son is 15, just entering his college search process. William goes to Corning Painted Post High School in New York. It's a public international baccalaureate school. So I went to a parent-teacher association meeting the other night, and the guidance counselors encouraged all the parents to register with Family Connections to make it easier for them, the guidance counselors, to keep track of the hundreds of high school students they need to monitor on their journey. All the academic transcripts, letters of recommendation, extracurricular activities, along with their corresponding deadlines, all in one place and with proper permissions, accessible by the student, the parent, the high school guidance counselor, the college admissions counselor, and other appropriate stakeholders, all in one place. So while no one made it mandatory for parents to register, the vast majority of us will. What struck me was that there was no alternative. The guidance counselors didn't mention exclusivity, but this family connection is their preferred model just because it simplifies their life exponentially. That's what's in it for them. So it occurred to me that this entire ecosystem approach could eventually render the relative randomness of college searches via Google nearly obsolete. As a parent, I acknowledge I'll need some assistance in navigating this college choice adventure that may end up costing us $200,000 or so. I'm looking for guidance from a trusted source. If I can follow a path of least resistance in a place that was recommended to me by a friend, and that place has a sufficient number of academic options for my kid, then I'm all in. So I started thinking about this less from a parent perspective and more from a marketing perspective. The model makes so much sense because it breaks through the noise, the cacophony that defines our online world today. As a parent, how do I deal with this information overload to help my kid make the best decision for him as it relates to our family about where to go to college? As a marketer, how do I help U.S. campuses attract the attention of families that best fit their institution? How do we fix the filter failure as it relates to international student recruitment? We reintroduce the human element through trusted advisors that have the students and the family's best interests at heart. It makes sense to seek guidance from a trusted advisor who you already know, like a high school guidance counselor or wealth manager. What would happen if that single ecosystem model was duplicated on a large scale, dedicated to international student recruitment? That's what INCAS does. So with regard to international student recruitment, in what environment would that model make sense? The overseas or even domestic boarding school market is by no means a new market for international student recruiters. It makes sense to target qualified students through their preceding academic environment. Boarding school students of all different nationalities and backgrounds are well prepared to advance in their educational journey. What's been missing is a platform that coordinates all of those communities in one place. And why would those guidance counselors recommend such an ecosystem? Because it addresses their pain points of dealing with an awful lot of data scattered in any number of different ways. Here's another example of duplicating that ecosystem in a natural environment. The rising middle class, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, has been well documented. These families are seeking guidance from wealth managers who encourage the parents to help their children explore educational opportunities through that one single ecosystem. So what's in it for them? A lot. Turns out those wealth managers and their affiliated financial institutions have a lot to gain. And the global banking community is just now waking up to the enormity of the international education industry. I was paging through the latest ICEF Insights magazine and was struck by the number of full-page advertisements dedicated to payment processors. And I think you'll find similar exposure in the PI Review and also within the NAFSA Expo Hall at their annual conference. Those kinds of vendors would not have shown up 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. But of course, now it's worth their while. HSBC is no small player on the world stage, for example, and if those wealth managers can provide a deeper level of service to their clients, they win. Everybody wins. And these two industries, financial technology and educational technology, are not that far apart. Interestingly, after years of unprecedented growth in the financial services industry, technologists have recognized the deceleration of that segment, which they anticipate will coincide with the acceleration of ed tech. As this article notes, just as digitization has transformed the financial services industry, it too will soon have its progressive grip wrapped around education. Financial institutions stand to gain directly through loans to study abroad, opening up new accounts in the host country, and other services that complement the education journey. Increasingly, the industry is also embracing escrow accounts, particularly in higher risk jurisdictions where families are depositing that first year's tuition and living expenses in advance. The central ecosystem updates the appropriate host educational institution that proof of funding has been satisfied, triggering the release of appropriate visa paperwork. Once the student physically enrolls at the institution, funds are dispersed to the institution and living expenses are distributed accordingly. Now, initial reactions may poo-poo the concept of escrow accounts. That won't work. We really can't afford to place any more barriers to entry in front of applicants. Beware of backward thinking, or at least stagnant thought process that simply maintain the status quo. Actually, in some countries like China, escrow accounts are gaining significant momentum as parents are eager to elevate their son or daughter's visa application. Escrow protects the student and his family as well, who are insured by a fee protection policy which also assures students, families, and sponsors that their investment is secured in case the educational institution stumbles financially. And escrow accounts not only minimize the financial risk of the education institutions, but it also streamlines the visa decision-making process. So how else can we think differently about improving the efficiency and integrity of the international student recruitment cycle in this atmosphere that is charged and ready for some fresh, forward-thinking models? Because maybe the only certainty is that we'll need to work harder and smarter to advance global student mobility. I'd say we can take another lesson from the banking industry. So here's an innovative approach to counter any notion of building a wall, figuratively or literally. And we must admit that we, as an industry, can improve the vetting process of student visa applicants. We all want the best and brightest, most bona fide students studying here. So take advantage of proven, robust technology to proactively conduct stronger due diligence. That technology includes identity authentication informed by Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering guidelines currently used in the financial services industry around the world. Systems can effectively scan about 9 billion source records, which include publicly accessible sanction lists, politically exposed persons lists, and social media platforms. And we can encourage qualified students to substantiate their financial capacity over time. I don't know if you caught my piece of the PI, the Professionals in International Education blog last month. Those pendulum swings can be painful but powerful pushes to new perspectives. Plenty of industry leaders are taking a wait-and-see approach. If we dig deep enough with a strong dose of humility, we can find common ground in our mutual goal to attract, recruit, and manage qualified international students and scholars. The fact is, we can do a better job in international admissions. And as we all know, it's entirely possible and even healthy to step outside of our comfort zones while staying true to ourselves. So when making these recommendations, it's important to tap into that intercultural competency training and peer into a proverbial mirror. How would I feel if I was the student applicant or parent or sponsor? I find digital due diligence creepy. I'm not in love with the idea of parting with my money any sooner than necessary, but I understand the rationale that necessitates these initiatives. And if that means I can help my kid become a better citizen of the world via study abroad, then I'm all in. Now, one final example from the banking industry, which directly relates to technology tools used to improve the efficiency and integrity of international student admissions. Addressing the proof of financial capacity requirement. It's now possible to empower the student or sponsor to digitally ping their accounts and point that data to the authority who requested it, again, improving the efficiency and the integrity of the process. So instead of sending a PDF file that can be pretty easily manipulated, the data is directly transferred. The digital verification of account balances takes about 3 minutes per individual bank account to complete. So for each account listed and pinged, we show all transactions over the course of the past 30 to 90 days, depending on the individual bank's policies. So back on the student's dashboard in the INTCAS ecosystem, all account balances can be displayed with totals in both the home country currency, in this case the US, as well as the host country currency, in this case the United Kingdom. All of this data, the verification of funds, the due diligence reports, the escrow accounts, as well as academic transcripts, recommendations, and all other materials related to that application, all in one place. There's no doubt in my mind that this is where the industry is headed. Of course, it's tough to know where U.S. student visa policy is headed, but it's always prudent to work smarter to recruit bona fide international students. So my organization, INTCAS, happens to bring together these latest technology tools, and we would absolutely be happy to schedule a demo at your convenience. Again, INTCAS helps education institutions from around the world to attract, recruit, and manage international students in a safe, compliant, and cost-efficient way. U.S. institutions can enter our platform and form relationships with various communities to connect with students and parents, all at a very reasonable cost per student acquisition. Get in touch with us and I'd be happy to share more information about it. Thanks for joining us and look for the next webinar coming up soon.